Hi, welcome to Introspection with Jeff. Um, Today's my birthday. I have a nice pumpkin cheesecake I got from work. There's a discount, so I just had to pay half price, and that leads into that leads into something that leads into what I wanted to talk about. Um, Today at work, I mentioned that I left it on my cheesecake I got Saturday. Today's Monday evening, or Monday afternoon when I told her, and I left it on the counter. And I don't know what I was thinking. Typically, when I get groceries, I put them away immediately, like ice cream, just bread, even everything. I put away immediately, and I guess I just like seeing how it decorated my countertop, and I just like I put it down, saving it for a special time. Felt embarrassed about it, and of course, she has this teasing way of saying, "Well, how could you do something?" She didn't say it like she didn't phrase it like this, but what I felt was something like, "How could you do something that talk?" She said, "Talk to me next time. I'll give." I mean, she was kidding about it, but she was in a jovial mood. But I don't know. I felt embarrassed. I can only mention what I was thinking and why I did those things. But then afterwards, um, her shift ended sometime later, and but I was still. That reminded me of um, the first quit with the waterworks, and I remember crying and me being made fun of quite a bit. And I remember even in elementary school, I remember in fifth grade, we were reading, I think, The Ugly Duckling. And yeah, The Ugly Duckling. And I remember confiding privately to the homeroom teacher, that who's also my English teacher, that sometimes I feel like the ugly duckling. I just remember crying a few times and people making fun of me, and I guess after a while I had to hold it in and hold it in. I remember, like as an adult, holding it in, and I remember one therapist. For the past couple of years, say, I've had a few therapists, and a few of them had asked, how do I feel such and such? How do I feel about it? And I mean, major things like the landlord forcing me out, or the you know some tense traumatic thing, and I would say, well, I feel like frustrated and angry and so forth. And then he would ask further, like one of these therapists would ask further, well, like, how did you feel about it? And I don't know, I gave accurate answers. Maybe wanted more, but that ties in perhaps with having to hold these emotions in. Um, anyway, and then I remember in elementary school specifically, because of the stage we would rehearse on, we would all gather in the cafeteria, and there was a stage at one end of the cafeteria. Usually I think there were curtains over the hiding that stage from the cafeteria itself. But when we would rehearse for um, a winter or spring music service for the invited, the public was invited. When we would rehearse for it was in music class, because there was no choir class yet. I remember the art teacher would come in and assist, for whatever reason. I like it because I like art. Come in and assist the music teacher, and she'd have this piano, and we'd be all standing there lined up in like 3 rows, rehearsing, and I remember at least once just crying and wanting others to notice that I was crying. And somebody asked, "Are you meditating?" I guess maybe because my hands would be like this, and I didn't know what meditation was. I thought it had something to do with releasing your tears. So somebody else asked, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm meditating." Just kind of stupid now. Well, it was ignorant. Literally, it was ignorant because I didn't know. Surprisingly, I didn't. That was a word I didn't know. Meditation. Meditating. So I just held these emotions in sometimes. Um, okay, I'm going through the, and I remember here I have. I guess this is more towards, well, could be any time. I think more towards middle school and high school. I have here. I also wanted to mention how I'd watched the original Star Trek TV series and think I'd be more comfortable there than in school. I certainly, when I would watch, because I had video cassette collection. Yeah, it would have been, well, at that point anyway, it would have been high school because that's when I started collecting ordering for the Star Trek video cassette collection from, I think it was Columbia House or Paramount. I think it was Columbia House. The one that had them all in a uniform packaging, and the episodes were released on the video cassette. There would be 2 episodes per video cassette, and you're right, right. Paramount had the cheap, nice, colorful cardboard slipcover you put over the video cassette, but I had the Columbia House one that was the collector's edition, where it looked like a book, kind of. You would open it up, and they were put in stardate order, which is a unique way of doing it. I liked it because they're supposed to be in stardate. That's chronologically they're supposed to be in stardate. They should be in stardate order. Anyway, I would watch them, and sometimes when I'd watch the original series, I would think how compassionate they were towards each other, the characters were towards each other, and how constructive and how well they treated each other, and that I would feel more comfortable there than I would in school. Sometimes even the teachers. I should mention that somebody did respond. Somebody posted a comment on one of my earlier videos. I think it was the bullying and dating video, and I had mentioned in the video that I wondered if some of it was myself, that I had caused some of the bullying, but he said no, you didn't do anything. That was reassuring. He said you didn't do anything. In so many words, he said that they shouldn't have done those things, and I think he apologized, and he said that the teachers just stood by and let it happen, and he said something like it's on them too. So I part of the purpose of this video series on my YouTube channel is mentioning these things because it'd be therapeutic for younger generations, for people watching. Maybe they experience the same thing, and I want to let them know that they weren't alone, or they won't be alone if they're young and they go to school or whatever and they start experiencing it themselves. So I put down here, felt like a Nazi thing. Only the strong kids get respect. It was, of course, I don't think of myself as I think of myself as strong in certain ways, but not in terms of brute strength to the point of being willing to beat up and inflict harm on somebody else. And it seems sometimes like they're the top kids that could beat up others, and then there are kids below that. It's a pecking order. Um, and I specifically mentioned, I specifically put Nazi thing because of that sense that there's a superior, if you have strength, you have superiority over others. Maybe I'll get into that further in another video. And there was something weird. I remember in middle school, no, actually come to middle school or ninth grade, the ninth grade annex, because when I started high school, routinely, just in general, all of us going into ninth grade were put into the House 5 annex. And we weren't in the main high school building. That was only down the street. Like, here's the parking lot, here's the high school building, here's the House 5 annex. And it was, essentially they took an elementary school, some kind of earlier grade school, and something like they cut it in half. So so our House 5 occupied some of that school. And I had one class in the morning, actually, that was in the main high school building, so it was kind of fun. The few of us that were in ninth grade would walk. Sometimes this is icy and snowy and so forth. We would walk through the parking lot to the high school, and we were let out a few minutes early, which is kind of fun, because anytime I feel special and there's some attention to me, it's nice. And also because I got to walk with other kids. There were, I don't remember how many other kids. I remember there was a tall kid. As a matter of fact, I think that was the same kid that would we would hold his hand up over his forehead and he would pretend to hit his head on a metal post or something. I remember there was somebody who was a girl who was a Muslim, and I remember a girl named Bridget Bierman, and she had like permed hair usually, and I don't know whatever happened to her. I've been curious, so maybe somebody knows what happened to her. Maybe somebody could clue me in privately or post in the comments. She always had a smile on her face and so forth. I was just curious whatever happened to her. So anyway, so I think that was it. It was a small group, so we would walk back to advanced placement English class, and then we'd walk back at the end. I don't think it was there. It was either that or middle school. I want to think it was House 5. I'm pretty sure it was House 5. There was some kind of school official that kind of pulled me aside somewhere, and not formally, I mean just like, I guess I was walking the hall or something, I think, and he pulled me aside and he said, I'd like you to sit in on this student peer group for people. I got the impression something like dealing with personal problems. So my reaction was that he must think that I have personal problems. And I don't know whether, I may have sat in one session, but I didn't do it long term. I don't even remember for sure if I sat in on one session. I just didn't have an interest in doing something like that. Now, well, since then, I've wondered if maybe he thought that I was good talking with people about problems. So maybe it was more of a compliment. I don't know. I'm a little curious. I wish I knew. And surprisingly, the way I remember it being in the annex, House 5 annex, was kind of odd. I remember this girl who had one time had a skirt, and I remember that girl. I mean, her face was very memorable. She wasn't in our class, um, so maybe it was eighth grade because I remember there would have been kids in seventh grade. I knew her in the hall somewhere, or I was somehow familiar with her, and I think sometimes she would sit with other kids who had difficulties. Um, in eighth grade, yes, in eighth grade, I would sit with, I won't divulge their names, but in eighth grade, I would sit alone. You know, sometimes I would sit with this other kid I mentioned before, but I started sitting with these couple of kids who had, special, so to speak, special needs, I guess. I mean, there's no way around it. Basically, I'm keeping it as generic as possible because I don't know the specifics, but that's the impression I got. And I was in eighth grade, and they were one of them was a year younger, so he would have been in seventh grade, so that makes sense. And in middle school, only had seventh and eighth grade. So it was probably in eighth grade when this official asked me, and I remember this girl at one point wearing a skirt, and I remember her face, and I remember she was part of this group. So maybe I sat in on a session once. Anyway, I put here, I'm making cries for help sometimes these recent years, meaning in these recent years, sometimes I've been it feels like I've been making cries for help, but I mean, there's stress. I've gone through some traumatic experiences in the past few years, and that's what what inspired me to finally seek out a therapist. Maybe now, perhaps, I really need somebody to talk with because I would try and talk with friends. There was one, they would have a few minutes, or it was inconsistent, and they just wouldn't have time for me. And there was this one friend, and he wouldn't, number one, he usually wouldn't have time for me. He would tell me, well, we can, I would call him on the phone. He would say, well, we can talk for a few minutes. Meanwhile, he was mowing the lawn or something, or fixing something on his car or something. And that's not, I can't really talk about deep personal things with something like that, much less it being over the phone. So anyway, so there have been times when I would make cries for help, and it seemed nobody took it seriously enough. Maybe some of them would hear me, but they wouldn't realize how I put a certain word here, the extent of the damage to me, like on my psyche. So I've wondered about stress, and I've wondered about me having gotten a stroke suddenly. I wondered if that relates to it, and just in general, somewhat jitteriness sometimes. And as I said before, the cheesecake, like leaving it on the counter, and I think a few days ago I left the keys accidentally in the outside of my apartment. Thank goodness it's a decent apartment building and nobody took the keys, but that's not the first time it's happened. It's the first time it's happened in a long while, but I've felt for a long while I want a vacation. I need a vacation. I need time away, and I've said that to people sometimes, even at work. The supermarket, the coworkers at the supermarket, like in my other job, I want time away for myself just to heal. And sometimes I get like a headache, or sometimes, not often, I mean like a tingling or something, and sometimes I just feel stressed. I remember it was probably in sixth grade. I put down, it was probably not in middle school. I remember walking in the hall, like where our lockers were, and I remember asking somebody to give me fighting lessons. In fact, I sort of even remember who it was. Initials JT. Um, because I wanted to defend myself. So even back then, I mean, in elementary school, I was being picked on, and I wanted, I actually took an initiative and sought out help to be able to defend myself. So that's it. So now I get to enjoy my birthday, but this is an important topic for an important video I wanted to get out. Thanks. Bye.